So, let's talk about lore movies.
Whenever I begin discussing this topic with my friends, they're often confused and ask me to give a definition of what the term lore movie even means. To me, a lore movie is a film or project which is so wholly based on playing fan service to previously existing stories that it isn't made with the same standards or purposes of a regular film. Now, this video is focusing on examples on the internet, but really these sorts of media can exist in mainstream cultures as well. I think one of the best examples of this is Psych the movie. The film, a long-awaited sequel to the cult TV series still beloved by many to this day, was rushed into production after extremely fast rewrites had to be made due to the health of one of the show's main actors. This leads to a story which is as contrived as it is forgettable. Coming from a show that is known for being one of the most creative takes on its genre and format, it feels a little sad to see the plot be given a treatment that feels more akin to something like CSI Miami. Despite this, I still thoroughly enjoy Psych the movie, because it still delivers on everything that's important. I tuned in to see all of my favorite characters again, to have cameos for all the fan favorites, and to have classic nods to funny moments from the past. And it pulled that off. It accommodated the franchise's lore to the extent that it not being a good movie really didn't matter to me. And that, in my eyes, is what a lore movie is. It's media meant to subsist off existing material, no matter how obscure, in order to cater to a pre-existing group of hyperfans, to the extent that more general quality isn't the first thing considered. One of the first YouTube movies I think of when it comes to this term is Dick Figures the movie. Now, I remember watching a lot of Dick Figures and being really excited when they ended up crowdfunding this big professional film. But by the time it was released, I had stopped watching and had literally forgotten everything about the show. Mainly because it's called Dick Figures. So it's a trip watching this movie now and seeing all these characters who don't deserve to have a film made about them be introduced explicitly because they're recognizable for hardcore fans. There's this raccoon in the film who is very important to the narrative. And I feel like if I remembered anything about this show, him getting an entire film with big character payoff would be a big deal. But to get enjoyment that deep, I already need to be some sort of hyper fan. Thus, lore movie. I so wanted to beat around the bush for this video. Maybe I'd find a couple other YouTuber lore movies to critique. Maybe one, in particular, would be good, and I'd get to praise it. But why waste your time? We all know why we're here.
Channel Awesome is a name that is so entwined with the mistreatment of friends and co-workers, and mismanagement on a ridiculous scale that even just saying their name tends to suck all of the fun out of the room. Now, the channel that probably shouldn't be named actually used to have somewhat of a positive reputation. Indeed, I remember when I was a kid, absolutely loving watching Nostalgia Critic videos. I would do it every Wednesday like clockwork, and I was so obsessed with it that if you knew me at the time, you probably can remember either a time where I tried to make you watch one of these videos, or where I talked about it to an extent that probably got kind of grating. As I grew older, and I got through middle school and then high school, I slowly stopped watching them, and it's mainly because I just started liking good content. But even then, I didn't expect all of the things that have come out since then. You know, I recently went to a social gathering of sorts, and there was someone there who I'd never met before who knew who I was as a YouTuber. So we ended up talking, and it became quickly apparent that he knew me exclusively as a guy who had talked about Channel Awesome a while ago in one video, and that's all he knew me for. And so he wanted like all my hot takes about, like, he was like, what do you think of the wall? What do you think of this and that? And I was like, man, you're gonna be surprised by this, but when I don't like a YouTuber, I don't keep watching him. But, you know, I had this realization. Not only do I not like talking about Channel Awesome, I don't like thinking about Channel Awesome. I prefer to live in a world where they cross my mind so little that I forget that they exist. That tends to be where I'm the most happy. After all that drama came out and I rushed to make that video, there was this brief private time that I had sort of offline where I was really broken by the whole affair. I became physically unwell because of just how upset it all made me. And it got to the point that, like, my friends would, like, come to the house and would drag me out and be like, okay, we're taking you to lunch, you shouldn't be alone right now. And I think a big part of it was that the Channel Awesome situation made me have, like, a full-on identity crisis, where I realized if I hadn't grown up watching Doug Walker's content, I would not have gone down the path that I had. I would never have made those early videos talking about Rankin Bass films. I wouldn't have done any of that. I wouldn't have a YouTube channel. I wouldn't have a career. I wouldn't be on this path. And I didn't know how to keep moving forward when I just felt those origins had been so sullied, you know? And, you know, the sad thing is, Channel Awesome, their whole strategy was just to ignore the situation and wait for people like me to become so emotionally exhausted that we never wanted to talk about it again. They felt if they just never addressed any of the issues, their careers would be fine. And at the end of the day, according to Brad Jones, one of the only people who has stuck by them, at the end of the day, their careers were all that really mattered to them in this situation.
This thing, and one thing that we kept saying on our site, and and other sites as well, is we were saying, like, I mean, look, like, Logan Paul filmed a dead body, and, like, he still has a career.
I mean, that is so upsetting to me. Because Channel Awesome was essentially exposed for covering up several instances of sexual misconduct and sexual harassment, and all for the sake of protecting their friends and also seemingly their brand. And their only response to this is that they don't really care about that because Logan Paul filmed a dead body and he still makes a lot of money and that's all they really care about is their careers. I mean, I don't know how I can not be upset by that. But I mean, at the same time, their strategy paid off because after a month, I made like a silent vow to myself. I would never talk about this stuff on the channel ever again because I was just tired of people tagging me in this stuff every day. I just didn't want to hear about it anymore. So what changed? Why am I talking about it now if I felt that way so strongly? Well, this little voice kept whispering a thought into my ear, one that made me smile no matter what, and I just felt the need to bring it to light. When you hear the name Doug Walker, one of the first things you think is, oh, the Nostalgia Critic, one of the most popular comedic reviewers on the entire internet. I would like to see that change. From now on, when you hear that name, I believe you should think Doug Walker, the worst filmmaker of all time. If you binge a lot of my old videos, you might notice a trend where I used to always come on camera and say, wow guys, I think I found the worst movie of all time. I know I said this a month ago, but this one's really the worst. And you may have noticed I have not done that in a very long while. And that is because about 1.5 years ago, I watched To Boldly Flee, which is the worst film of all time. There's no competition, no questions anyone could ask. It is legitimately the most frustratingly unentertaining, unwatchable movie ever made by human hands. Now Quinton, I hear you protest, surely there are worse movies than that? Birdemic, The Room, Manos, Plan 9, etc. And to that I say, all of those movies are incredible. I have had parties where I invite friends over and we put those movies on and we watch them and we have a great time. How can you say those movies are truly bad when everyone loves them so much? To Boldly Flee isn't like that. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's sort of bad that crushes your soul, that makes you want to turn it off every frame that goes by. This video hurt to make. I was in pain during this video. I barely could handle it. And I just hope to God it doesn't hurt as much to watch.
One of the things that's most frustrating about To Boldly Flee is that it isn't really cohesive in all the things it presents. There's a lot of stuff that deserves deep dives and deconstructions, but not a lot of it is really connected. One plotline has nothing to do with another. It's just a lot of stuff that's all going on, and a lot of it really deserves to be talked about on its own. Most of my videos are structured to be a series of rants and mini discussions which build up to a bigger picture, but in this case, the only bigger picture is that it's really hard to understand why someone made this movie. And so, before we get into a long-winded exploration of the many unlinked threads of this project, we might as well start off this discussion by giving a big thanks to the sponsor of today's long overdue review, NordVPN. NordVPN is a service that helps cloak the location of your IP address by giving you access to thousands of secure servers all over the world. Being online in today's day and age can be very dangerous, and online security is something that you have to start taking very seriously before something bad happens. Nord not only makes you more secure, but gives you a chance to get around any copyright or censorship issues in your country. If you're visiting China and really want to binge a season of South Park or the latest Winnie the Pooh movie, NordVPN can help. And you can get 70% off a 3-year plan today at nordvpn.com/Quinton. And using the code Quinton at checkout will also get you an additional month entirely free. Once again, that's nordvpn.com/QUINTON. So to really understand a big chunk of the point to Boldly Flee, we need to understand what the nostalgia critic had been up to this point, and what struggles he had gone up against. Doug Walker started his review series as a side project while he worked his day job. It was created on no budget and was formed for the early limitations of old YouTube. Most of his early content is under 10 minutes, because for the time, all YouTube videos had to be. And because of this, he was initially very sparing with what he would show and discuss. Most videos would go like this. Doug would find something he was nostalgic for, he would talk about the experience he had with it as a child, and then he would go through it and talk about how silly or stupid it was, while playing clips that were worthy of being quickly mocked. I think early Nostalgia Critic can be a lot more palatable because Flanderization effect hadn't quite set in yet, so the punchline to every joke isn't just him screaming, and he manages to have actual commentary on what he's watching, and more importantly, why he's watching it. Doug soon left YouTube in favor of competitor Blip.tv and started his own website, ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com. This granted him the right to make his videos as long as possible and to include as much of the copyrighted material as he saw fit, and he also began inviting other similar creators on board to broaden the site's appeal. Soon, the brand lasted long enough to celebrate anniversaries, and to reward the fans for sticking around so long, films began to be made starring the most popular and iconic reviewers of the time. All you need to know about these movies is that they're bad, but not as bad as the movie we're going to be reviewing today. I think whenever Doug isn't in the scene, it's just a bunch of friends hanging out and trying to capture a feeling of camaraderie and respect, you sort of nod your head and find yourself understanding why people like sitting through these things even though they were kind of embarrassing. One really important moment in Doug's devolution was his massive review of Moulin Rouge. The video is a musical. It features a couple reviewers singing and acting next to him. Some of them seem like they're being held against their will. And even as a nostalgia critic-obsessed tween, I sort of understood that what I was watching was really embarrassing and significantly worse than the movie they were talking about. And yet, I was shocked to learn later that this was the review that made Doug decide to stop being the nostalgia critic. Not because it's one of the cringiest things ever to be made, but because he considered it to be a work so great that he could never top it again if he ever tried. Boy, did he prove that wrong. This brings us, the long way round, to his most infamous creation, To Boldly Flee. The inspiration behind this movie is essentially a desire to justify the fact that Doug Walker's creations are inherently bad. And not even by regular standards that an actual film student might apply, but to his own limited pitching and perceptions of what makes a movie good or bad in his own reviews. His films can be nitpicked very easily. Their stories often don't make logical sense and are filled with the proverbial plot hole. There's a rip in space-time outside of the Earth that's making my movies bad! In this film, Doug and his cast introduce us to the plot hole, an anomaly in space that is affecting the nature of reality to the extent that it makes these movies not make any goddamn sense. In the previous film, the gag character Mati had sacrificed his life and had passed away, and the critic spends the start of To Boldly Flee mourning his friend, before discovering that he survives inside of the plot hole. Okay, so as you can probably tell just by these last few paragraphs, the weirdest thing about this movie is how oddly contained and esoteric it is. Understanding the long and ridiculous plot involves not only having a grasp of all of the previous Channel Awesome lore movies, but also a surprisingly high amount of Doug Walker's content. You know that thing MST3K does, where most of the episode will be them riffing a movie in the theater, but then it'll pan out and suddenly the characters will be acting as if they're in the movie in order to lampoon and make commentary on it? Well, Doug Walker usually does the same thing on his show, except he's so immersed in his character that there's this expectation of some reality behind the segments. as if all of these things are really happening to this character. As an example, the infamously bad movie Battlefield Earth features an ending where the heroes of the film teleport a bomb to the homeworld of the alien bad guys, and it destroys all life on the planet due to its heavily gas-based atmosphere. So when Doug reviewed the film, he had a skit where the same alien bad guy contacts the critic from said planet, and then someone lights a cigarette in the background, and the entire thing blows up.
Uh-oh.
What's wrong?
Oh, it looks like someone lit a cigarette on our home planet, and now the whole damn thing's going to explode.
Oh, gee. I'm sorry.
It's a dumb skit, pretty easy to forget by virtue of not being very clever, and yet, if you haven't seen that review, you will be immensely confused by To Boldly Flee, because that character from that one skit at the end of that one review is an essential plot point for the entire runtime. Except it doesn't even make sense how they present it, because it seems like Doug doesn't remember the content of his own videos very well, so he keeps describing that skit in a way that it distinctly did not happen.
Roll the footage. Not only is he responsible for the destruction of my home planet,
Doug straight up just steals characters from other films, and his only justification over why he should be allowed to do this is that he made fun of these characters in his videos. Like, General Zod is in this movie. It's Doug playing General Zod, but it's literally General Zod. And there's not really a bit or a point. It's like General Zod being there is the entire joke. And he doesn't have anything else to add, really. My favorite part is that Doug seemed to be aware that he couldn't just literally steal these characters and get away with it. So his choice was to change the spelling of the names just enough that it was different, but not enough that they're pronounced differently. So he just added another D to General Zod, and he called it a new character. Fair use, everybody!
You know that scene in Ghostbusters where two characters are talking and one of them uses like a Twinkie to explain some science, and then a third character walks in and the second character goes, "Hey, tell him about the Twinkie." In this movie they do that joke, but it's about Sage's penis instead. That's the movie. That's all you need to know about it. It's really fantastic scenes you've seen done well in good movies, but rewritten to be about the genitalia of internet reviewers.
One of the biggest plot points in To Boldly Flee is that Star Wars is happening? I don't know how else to explain it. Doug lifts numerous scenes from Star Wars, he has random reviewers act them out, and it's sometimes line by line except there are new punchlines added in. It's sort of like what Robot Chicken did with their Star Wars specials, except without any of the charm or production value, but more importantly, those skits were really compact. They didn't go on for like 3 fucking hours. This isn't a small thing. Star Wars happening is most of the film, and it's the least interesting aspect, but arguably, it's also what makes it so bad. Because not only are you seeing Doug and Rob perform in ways that aren't entertaining, but you're also seeing their friends acting these moments out and trying their best to slug through it in spite of their obvious embarrassment. And I want to tell you that there's some point to the Emperor from Star Wars being one of the big bad guys and bossing around characters from Superman 2 and Battlefield Earth, but there is no real point other than it being throwbacks to skits that I honestly just don't remember. I guess Doug really wanted to milk how much he looks like Terrence Stamp, but I look like Jack O'Halloran and you don't see me making a non-standalone movie. One of the strangest scenes, I feel, is the parody of the opera scene from Star Wars 3, where Palpatine tells Anakin about Darth Plagueis the Wise. In this movie, they're watching Manos the Hands of Fate, and Palpatine is essentially pitching my opinion that it's actually really great because it's entertaining and people love watching it. And he suddenly claims that the one way to make a great film that will last for all of time is to make one that is extraordinarily terrible.
People love him precisely because they hate him.
I don't understand.
Fame is fleeting, but infamy lasts forever. It's a technique only a true master can perfect.
And I can learn this technique?
Not from a critic.
There's this film on Netflix called Frankenstein's Monster Frankenstein, which is about this actor finding one of his father's lost plays and making a miniature documentary on it. And of course, the footage from the play is all fake and is supposed to be awkwardly bad in a really sort of funny way. I'm bringing this up because I feel that the highlight of the film is how pretentiously several characters in the story will begin long conceited monologues about what it means to be an actor, despite it having nothing to do with the scene.
Showcases his talent is no better than a rich man boasting about his billfold. An actor shouldn't glide across the stage more gracefully than a common man, nor should he play the clown, a studied simplicity in every gesture.
I can't tell what's a quote.
Beware.
In To Boldly Flee, the characters talk about being reviewers in the exact same manner, and it feels totally irrelevant to the situations that they're in, but whoever is writing feels like talking about being a reviewer adds something when it absolutely does not. The character in the story who is given the task of being Luke Skywalker is pushed through this arc where other reviewers try and teach her what it means to be a critic. And it's just really bad. According to what I've been told, the script for To Boldly Flee didn't actually include what films the scenes were copying. So a lot of these actors actually shot these scenes without understanding the references that they were supposed to be making, which obviously makes the parody work a whole lot less. The most embarrassing part about these long portions of script is just how much they do depend on the secondary cast, and how uncomfortable said people end up looking throughout the entire production. As you can probably tell, I'm trying not to show many of these characters for various reasons. So instead, let's go back to making fun of the scenes with Brad, because that guy sucks.
I need him!
Oh my god, this is so bad. I remember watching episode 3 and seeing the scene they're making fun of and just thinking, wow, this could not have been directed more poorly. But I was wrong. I was dead wrong. Because look what we got here. I've been informed that Brad specifically hated always being called Bradican in the script, and that when people started calling him that in the fandom, he got really upset, going as far as to ask that references to this be removed from the IMDb page. So Bradican is now what I'm going to call him for the rest of time. The scene where Palpatine claims to Bradican that making bad movies is the greatest way to be known, and that making a bad film on purpose actually causes one to live forever in infamy, is something that really caught my interest when he first said it. Because while intended to be a parody of big shot Hollywood thinking, it accidentally becomes a parody of how the filmmakers approach this project. I mentioned earlier that the plot hole mainly exists as an explanation for why these movies are bad, and that is absolutely accurate, based not only on how it's presented through dialogue, but also stories that happen to be going on behind the scenes. Rob specifically would use it as a way to shut down the cast and crew, pointing out blatant disregard for the basic tenets of filmmaking. Rule of 180 being broken? Plot hole. Continuity of scenes being largely inconsistent from shot to shot? Plot hole. The literal definition of the term plot hole not applying to half of these problems? That's gonna be a plot hole. This Palpatine character is a perfect representation of how shoddy the messaging of this film really ends up being, because depending on what scene you're watching, he's either a metaphor for scummy producers in Hollywood and also the existence of copyright law, or he's an evil emperor who built a gigantic space station that can blow up a bunch of stuff that he wants to use to rule the galaxy. By the way, this video is unofficially an episode of Knockoff November, and it might actually be the final Knockoff November, because I am officially out of ideas for this series. But that might be fitting, because out of all of my years of watching knockoff movies, I have never seen one fly so close to the source material, and it gets away with this by claiming that it's all a parody. But again, and I cannot emphasize this enough, I do not get the joke. It seems like the joke is supposed to be that the source material is being copied, as if that by itself is funny. This can be most easily compared to the likes of Epic Movie and Disaster Movie. But I feel like as bad as those movies were, they at least succeeded in finding interesting ways to lampoon whatever they were discussing. The same can absolutely never be said of To Boldly Flee. When you get down to it, this style of content, where the reference is the entire joke, has sort of been the bare-bones basics to a lot of Doug Walker's material for a very long time. Here's a clip from one of his recent videos.
Let's get this podcast with sketches started. I assume you want to talk about my impact on R-rated comic book movies, box office growth, and groundbreaking fourth-wall humor in the same sentence?
Not so fast, dumb devil. I got a black Morty from another dimension. I'm the woke version.
Hey, we gotta go in space, but I'm under house arrest for being a copyright martyr. Good thing we got it. We got a space house. We got a space house, people! So the nostalgia critic enters the plot hole space thing in his space car, and the moment he enters, he realizes that he's back in his own home. At first he chastises, I think, God for being so predictable before he opens his laptop and sees a script. A script to his own movie, written by another version of himself.
Oh my god.
So the reason that I've been going out of my way to define the nostalgia critic as a character is that it's actually the aspect that the creators would probably most easily identify as a defining factor. The critic is a character written by many men who is simply acted out by Doug like a marionette. I would argue one of the main reasons that they stuck so closely to this style is that it was a really good defense whenever they stepped over the line in terms of writing, but to be fair, pretty much most internet reviewers at the time really stuck pretty close to this shtick. At the time, most of these creators totally fed into the idea pitched by these movies, that all of their reviews existed within a cinematic universe, where Linkara was running around with a spaceship, the original Spoonie was killed and replaced by a clone, and yes, a plot hole is threatening to consume the universe. I remember many reviewers built up to this event. This was their Crisis on Infinite Earths. And people like Doug Walker started to take this idea very seriously, to the extent that he started to do unironic analysis of the critic's actions within the evolution of his reviews.
This all leads us to the big reveal of To Boldly Flee. This scene, which could not have been more bizarre or heavy-handed. I have so many questions about this scene, but strangely enough, I think the first one is, what in the world made Doug Walker choose brushing his teeth as the activity he would do as he entered his living room? What made him choose that specific thing as the thing he would naturally be doing? Was this entire movie crafted over a flossing session? I cannot emphasize enough how often I think about this scene. In my eyes, this is the most memorable thing about this movie. That Doug Walker walks around his house, casually brushing his teeth in the middle of the goddamn day. Nothing else is worth talking about. This scene keeps me up at night.
Who are you? I'm the writer.
So I'm just a character?
If you watch a lot of Doug Walker's emotional videos like this one writing trope keeps rearing its ugly head. That being, Doug will introduce gag characters who are meant not to be taken seriously, and will then have them go through serious emotions, all while pointing out how spectacular it is that all of this has happened. If you're in the 9th grade, this comes across as brilliant and unexpected, and if you're any other age, it seems charmless and shallow, a fact best represented by how the characters have to analyze stories out loud for any of this to be apparent. And so the ultimate twist of To Boldly Flee is that the nostalgia critic, despite being someone who is meant to be a caricature of mean, annoying people, actually occasionally acts with some sense of morality. This is what Doug calls development.
Would the dictator from Kick-Ass actually give a shit about his friends? Would the money-grubbing egomaniac from Suburbanites actually give a crap about a dead Indian boy?
People who are consistently emotionally abusive to almost everyone around them are redeemable if they occasionally seem like they care about their friends. I know I've been analyzing this movie in an odd, non-linear order, perhaps as a sort of rebellion against the style of videos made by the man himself. But you have to keep in mind that in between scenes of Doug Walker telling himself that his writing is brilliant because the critic cares about his friends, we keep cutting to ridiculously unentertaining scenes that are the pinnacle of embarrassment, all starring Doug's friends who clearly seem like they don't want to be there. Oh wow, it's the throne room scene from Star Wars, but with really lame jokes.
Come on, kid. Some films are worth fighting for.
So I know I joined the Empire and betrayed my friends and nearly helped kill all life in the galaxy. But the one thing I kept thinking throughout this whole thing was, Logan Paul filmed a dead body and he still has a career.
It's up to you, critic. The world of endless possibilities, the great mystery?
Who do you think that is?
A world where you know you have meaning.
This guy,
Purpose.
just walking by on the sidewalk outside of Doug Walker's home. What's his story? How did his day go? The overall intention of To Boldly Flee is that it is a swan song for Doug Walker and his creation. As I mentioned before, he had recently realized that his reviews had peaked, and that he no longer found satisfaction making them. His plan was to move on to another field of creation, comedy skits. He would soon fail miserably at this, his popularity and his site would tank and fail, and he would put the tie back on begrudgingly, under the understanding that it was his only option for longevity.
So what are you waiting for? You know it's just a matter of time.
But at the time that To Boldly Flee was created and released, this was it. This was the final piece of media that would ever feature the critic. At the climax of the film, where the plot hole is about to destroy everything, the critic invites the galaxy to join him in pointing out plot holes in famous films, as he allows the whole to absorb the universe, and then, himself. He becomes the world, becomes the universe, becomes the plot hole, and allows the plot hole to become all of reality. Doug Walker is now God. The final scene has a discussion where Santa Christ meets with all the critics who have suddenly survived and says that the universe exists within a plot hole now, so plot holes no longer really matter. Oh, innocent, innocent Santa Christ. Plot holes never mattered.
There's this ongoing thread throughout the movie where characters keep saying like slight variations of a similar phrase, and it's something like, "This is the end to a golden age of reviews." And that certainly seems to imply an undeniable ego to Doug, or perhaps his vision of the critic, or perhaps his worth through the critic. I'm not too sure. I feel like if I were to quit YouTube and I were to release this gigantic movie claiming that me leaving YouTube was the end to the golden age of all YouTube content, you guys would start retroactively liking my content less. The sex doll analysis was the peak of all YouTube content. It is all downhill from there. It's no wonder that the creators on ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com started to feel like it was less a network being supported by the big guys and more Doug Walker at center stage and the rest of them just serving as decorations around him. And by the way, almost everyone in the movie found out that the Nostalgia Critic was going to die and that he was going to stop making reviews when they read the script. A script which implied that when he left, they were going with him. You know, I wrote 18 pages of analysis for this, and I've been editing it while I've been shooting. And while I was editing, I just realized there are so many like storylines I just never touched because they're not interesting, and mainly they're the secondary cast just being like really embarrassed, and I just didn't feel like touching it. There's a storyline where Mecha is trying to like get into the ranks, and he's turning some of the reviewers into like famous cyborgs that Doug Walker has stolen from other properties, and it's just so bad. There's a subplot where they go inside Spoonie's mind, and Spoonie, they see versions of themselves how Spoonie perceives them, which I think is funny, because I imagine that's what reading the script for the first time was like, except it's Doug's mind. You know, you're just like, oh, man, Doug really thinks I'm really whiny. Okay, I've avoided talking about it long enough. Let's talk about the key aspect of what makes this film so infamous: the haphazard production. Earlier this year, I released a video that was a big deal for me because I had worked on it for literally over 2 years. And what the video was, it was an April Fool's video. And in 2017, I had this idea where every time I would shoot a video, I'd shoot like a gag version that was like sort of like an alternate world. And I'm still not happy with a lot of it because I had to rush it to get it out when I wanted to get it out. And I feel like I could have done a lot of those segments better. And in total, the video ended up being 3 hours and 24 minutes, which is long. And it's no wonder I had to rush a lot of segments despite having 2 years to make it. The reason I'm bringing this up is To Boldly Flee is 4 minutes longer than that, and it was made in a week. This movie is longer than Endgame, and it was made in less time than I spent working on this review.
There's one set of shots in this movie that I think are all really, really telling. Doug and a bunch of other characters are in the foreground talking about something, honestly, who cares? And in the background, Phaelus is there. And Phaelus, it seems, has been directed to stand in shot and mess with the house spaceship controls and pretend like he's doing something important as background filler. And he seems very exhausted and is moving in the most passive-aggressive way you can imagine, making it as clear as possible that he does not want to be in this movie. This is the greatest performance of To Boldly Flee. It is the one true time that the emotions of the actor come across as they are intended, where you are told everything you need to know about the project. Another great moment is the final party scene, where all of the critics are hanging out and having fun, including our dear friend Bradican, except for Phelan, who just doesn't move the entire... The cinematography in this film is so awkward, so rushed. It really comes across as the sort of work you get when you expect to film a 3.5-hour film in 7 days. There's so many low angles of Doug for no reason. I remember when I shot one of my first films in high school, and my friends had to sit me down and explain to me that movies aren't supposed to be filmed like this. I watched a brief podcast clip done by a bunch of smaller creators last year, and they all started reviewing the document and talking about it. And suddenly one of them invited their mom over from the hallway. And it turned out that she is some sort of industry professional. And they told her about the 18-hour shooting days, and her perspective on the situation was actually really enlightening. She basically said, when you shoot a movie and produce it like these people did, you either use industry professionals or your friends. You can't use professionals because they'll say no, because the final product will be very bad and they won't learn anything. And you can't use your friends because when the film is over, they won't be your friends anymore. There's this really funny meta element to this movie, where the movie was written under the pretense that Doug Walker was popular and friends with all the people in the movie, but he's playing a character who is a jerk and is hated by all of them. So everyone in the movie hates him, and they don't want to be around him. But by the end of production, or at least their relationships with him, they all really would hate him. Maybe not because he was a jerk, but at least because he was too stupid to treat them the way that they deserved. A lot of these scenes really do end up taking an entirely different meaning once you look at them under a modern glaze.
Well, it's just that whenever you contact one of your reviewers, it's either to criticize them or to fire them. Please don't fire me, Mr. Critic!
No, I mean, everything I do seems to have a negative impact on somebody.
Fame is fleeting, but infamy lasts forever.
So I want to end this video on what is, I think, a pretty unusual note. I want to discuss Doug Walker not as a person I dislike, but as a reflection of what I don't like about myself. As most of you probably know, I used to be this guy who is known for making one specific style of video. I would hop in front of the camera and be all full of energy, and I'd be like, guys, I found the worst movie of all time, and I want to tell you guys about it and why it's bad. What kind of various strategies could we choose from to approach explaining to you what makes it so bad? What about this one? What if I explain the plot to you really slowly, and sometimes I make jokes? And a lot of people really enjoyed when I made those sorts of videos, and I had a lot of fun making them. You know, sometimes I'd be representing my real views, and sometimes I would just be totally going off the cuff and exaggerating for the sake of making the video funnier, and that was just the nature of the game as I understood it. But then the change the channel controversy happened, and it got very dark and very upsetting very quickly, and I suddenly found it harder to go back to that old standard. And, you know, I still did for a while because I didn't know what else to do. I had a career. I had to put something out. And, you know, but I just ended up feeling empty every time I was done doing it. Sometimes I'll get curious, and I'll go back through my old catalog, and I'll pop on one of my old videos, and some of them I think are alright. I really like the Fairly Oddparents video. But other videos are really painful, either because they lack all self-awareness, or because they're just too much like Channel Awesome segment, you know, hyper-obsessed in all the wrong ways, and forcing anger about a topic which I really didn't care as much about as I was pretending to. You know, it's the smallest little things that get to me. In my second video, we introduced this character who was just supposed to be like this big, vague, evil guy that I wanted to show off every once in a while. and we threw on whatever we had around the house. This was back when I would hire people if they already had the costumes for the part. Like, that's how little budget I had. And I remembered I had some of those like spinny goggles Insane would wear. And it was at a time where I wasn't really watching any of those creators, but I still was like, oh, you know, a little nostalgic for that. So I had this like scientist character wear these, and I really like that character, but just the fact that he looks like Insano makes it so much harder for me to have the same innocent fun we did the first time we used him. I had made the aesthetics of my channel to be sort of a lazy copy, or perhaps an homage to the works of people like Doug Walker, and when I stopped being able to respect him, I guess I stopped being able to respect myself to some extent. You know, I recently made a little short film. It wasn't anything special. It was just like sort of my take on what I think Garfield is about, and it was a live-action Garfield fan film, and I called it Arbuckle. I wanted to do a follow-up video that I had a sponsor for, so I gave myself a very tight deadline. I came across this conundrum where actors kept dropping out left and right like flies. I think I went through like 5 Lymans, and everyone, for the most part, was cool. They all had totally legit reasons they couldn't do it. You know, life happens. And you know, like, I was honestly so stressed during this time because I really wanted to pull this off. And you know, when I was in high school and I would make these shoddy films that were just as bad as To Boldly Flee, but it was excusable because I was in like 10th grade. I would make these films and I would do them in almost no time, and I would stay up for days and days on end, and I would get more stressed every day, and I wouldn't get any sleep, and I'd just snap at some point. But this time I didn't do that. I didn't even come close. I didn't push myself nearly that hard because there was this little voice in the back of my head. You know, whenever I'd get angry that an actor had dropped out or I couldn't meet those deadlines, and that voice would go, "Hey, you're being a bit of a Doug Walker right now." So I ended up, you know, pushing those deadlines away. They didn't exist anymore. And I made filler content to satisfy those sponsors, and everyone hated the filler content, but that's the game you play. And what I've realized is Doug Walker isn't just bad, he's this beacon of horribleness where it makes you self-critical in just the right way, where you can become better just by totally avoiding being him. Doug Walker personally ruined an entire subgenre of internet reviewers for me. He ruined the idea of hiding behind a character for every piece you do, of nitpicking films one scene at a time. But worst of all, I feel, he ruined lore movies for me. In a big way, having a channel lore comes across as significantly less charming just because it's sort of associated with Doug Walker's take, which was so without charm or irony. And you know, it's sort of hard for a subgenre not to be defined by the literal worst film of all time existing within its subspace. My biggest aspiration as a creator, perhaps unconsciously, has become to never make any content that even has a slight association with the work of Doug Walker. I don't want my reviews to be like his. I don't want my actions to reflect his. But most importantly, I don't want my filmmaking to even be slightly similar to anything he's ever made. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go brush my teeth. Oh my God. This again, dude? Are you gonna make me review more Robotech? Oh, look at that, Barry. The poor boy's delirious. Hello. Wait a minute. Are you? Oh, I'm afraid I am. But that's impossible, surely. It would seem so, and yet, here I am. You're that weird guy that got banned from Magic the Gathering. I'm who now? Dude, sometimes I put your videos on, they're so funny, you like lack all self-awareness.
No, just shut up, man. Shut up. Jesus.
I thought this would be more obvious than this. I'm you, man. I'm you from a parallel universe. Oh, well that's pretty stupid. So is your universe, like, any different from this one? Yes, completely! While in your world you talk about pop culture, internet celebrities, and obscure Doctor Who episodes, in mine, I talk about B-movie. Wait, but I also make videos about B-movie. Yes, but in my world, literally every video I make is about B-movie. I could literally sit down here right now and talk to you about B-movie for 3 hours straight. Yeah, you know what? I feel like I could also do that right now, because, you know, B-movie is a fascinating film with an incredible background and a lot of lore, and I don't really meet a lot of people who know as much about it as I do. Oh. Well, then I guess on like a deep personality level, perhaps we're essentially identical. Wait, how many of your close and personal friends have you murdered? 0? Oh, well, there we go. That's how we're different. I've pretty much killed anyone who's ever been nice to me. One time, I kidnapped a friend who said B-movie was bad, and I tied them up in my basement, and then I killed another friend who got a piece of trivia about B-movie wrong, and I fed that friend to the friend that I tied up. It was so funny. Oh my god, why didn't you lead with that? You're probably wondering how I ended up in this world. Well, the thing is, I'm not quite sure. I was alone in my universe, feeling quite isolated and uncertain about my future, when suddenly I felt myself slipping, and I disappeared from that world and appeared in yours. Quite mysterious. My plan from here is obvious. This pretty little face looks exactly like mine, except you've lived in a world where you faced no controversies, made no mistakes. If I were to take your place, no one would even notice for a second. Yeah, so I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna take your spot on your channel, and I'm gonna take your whole life over, and no one's gonna notice because we look exactly the same. Oh man, I really want to like sarcastically criticize you right now. It's what I usually do, but this plan sounds pretty foolproof. Yes! And now, in exactly 10 seconds, I shall begin murdering you. 5, 4, 3!
Oh, I wouldn't say the plan is entirely foolproof.
That voice. Was that Caleb? In my universe, I killed Caleb just before I came here. It's my one regret. That's not Caleb. Then who is it? Oh, it's just some guy that kind of looks like Caleb. He shows up every once in a while. I always forget his name. It's something like Justin, or Jimmy, or Jacob.
John Miss. My name is John Miss. And if anyone's gonna kill that robo-fool Quinton Reviews, it's gonna be me.
Hey, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but this guy sucks. You can kick his ass. Granted. John, miss. You did it. You killed me. I legitimately didn't think you could do it.
Me neither.
Why did he fade away?
I have no idea. Blah. Okay. Alright. Alright, let's get this over with.
Get what over with? What are you doing? Oh, what was that? What are you doing? Stop. Dude, stop. No, stop. What is that? Stop. No, stop it, dude. Stop. Oh, Jesus Christ. Just give it to me. Why doesn't anyone invite me to things? Why does everyone kind of hit me on the head to take me places?
Welcome, Quinton. I've been waiting a long time for this. It's nice to finally meet you. My name is Tommy Tuner, and I need your help to save the multiverse.
Hey, I don't really know what's going on right now. Can I go home?
All will be explained in due time. But before you understand why I need you, you must understand who I am. For you see, I am not of this world.
I really don't care, man.
I hail from a parallel universe, much like this one, yet slightly different.
When I was a child, I wasn't spectacular, but I also wasn't understood. Everyone I knew in my life wanted to give me these outrageous demands, except for two people, Cosmonaut and Wandu, my personal fairlies, who granted me any wish that I chose. I grew up with them. They raised me as if I were their child, and often this pushed me away from my peers, who couldn't see my fairlies and thus didn't believe in them. As soon as I grew older, my fairlies would be taken away from me. Knowing this, I chose to be held back, staying in the 5th grade for years after I was naturally meant to.
Stop. You're describing a movie I reviewed once.
No. That was a movie about Timmy Turner. My name is Tommy Tuner. We're completely different people.
Oh god, I'm in a lore movie. Oh shit, oh fuck!
It was 10 years later, when I was 20 years of age, that I came across one of those friends in the adult world.
Tommy? It's Chester. Remember me? The 5th grade. Chester and AG?
Chester?
So what, you in like college or something?
Yeah, dude. Still in the 5th grade, actually.
Are you serious?
My days are great. They're so easy. I just get to prank Cocker all day, hang out with 10-year-old girls, we play dodgeball, I buy them ice cream. Dude, it's so cool.
Yeah, man, that's great. Look, I gotta run some errands, but I'll definitely talk to you later.
All right, dude. Don't go to the park tomorrow.
Oh god, you're describing one of my old skits to me. How do I escape? How do I escape from the lore movie?
The next day I went to the park, planning to enact a very serious plot that I had thought of for years. But my plans were put aside when I ran into Tootsie. She was the love of my life, someone I had bullied during my youth, but I now couldn't keep myself from. Tootsie and I spent days catching up, and slowly but surely, falling in love. On the 6th day, she gave me a gift, a hat, which represented my transition into maturity. As I placed it on my head, I knew I had begun my life as an adult, but my fairly soon arrived to warn me that something was coming. Soon, a blinding light consumed everything around us, and a figure stepped out from it.
My fairlies were stolen from me by a very specific politician who I'm choosing not to name.
Donald Trump.
What? No.
Donald Trump took my Fairleys, man! What? I need my Fairleys! We gotta break into the Trump towers and steal them back!
I don't want anything. I don't want to be a part of this.
You gotta... I swear to God, if you don't help me, I'll kill your family!
Okay! Ah!
Chester!
I wish that Donald Trump was president.
From that moment, I no longer existed. It's impossible to measure eternity, to gauge how long nothing goes on for. But all I do know is that eventually, nothing did come to an end. As I woke up, I realized that everything around me wasn't quite the way it had been moments before. An empty parking lot was now replaced with restaurants and a hotel. The town I was from was never nice enough to have a hotel. This was bizarre. I believe now that the politician making that wish had somehow destabilized the multiverse, leaving cracks in the foundation of reality. At the same time, it had sent me into a world similar to my own, yet totally different. After doing some searching, I suddenly found myself recognizing my old friend, and I ran to embrace him.
Chester!
Chester? Who the hell is Chester? My name is Bruce.
Hello, fellow citizens. I hope justice is proceeding as normal.
God damn it, Multiplication Man! When I told you to get a secret identity, I thought you'd try harder than this. Everyone can tell it's you.
Hey, fuck you, dude. After multiplying so many times, this jumpsuit has melted to my skin. I can't take it off.
Does anyone else feel really tired even though it's not that late?
It was incredible. I hadn't just arrived in any parallel or perpendicular universe to my own, but in a world of metahumans with godlike abilities. First, there was Purple Guy. He was purple. I don't think he did anything else. Then there was Multiplication Man. Multiplication Man had the power to multiply, either one time or 5 million times, with no in between, creating perfect copies at himself, at the small cost of the original dying almost immediately. Next was Jerry Falcon. Jerry was a scientist who at the age of 22 was hit by a car, which catapulted him into a shelf of scientific equipment which mixed together the perfect chemical concoction that maximizes his aerobic skills while permanently damaging his respiratory system, thus creating the Asthmatic Flash. After this came Perfect Sphere Man. He was a perfect sphere of human flesh, and was mostly known for being depressed. He made me sort of uncomfortable. Then there was Bruce Allen, a man who looked nearly exactly like the man I knew to be named Chester. A child prodigy with an incredible mind, he spent his youth creating a supersuit, which gave him super strength, near invulnerability, and flight. But it looked so ridiculous that he refused to ever put it on.
And finally, there was their leader, a commentary YouTuber, who I am again choosing not to name. Scarce.
Hey guys, it's Scarce here.
Hey, shut up, man!
This group, who went by the name the Supervise Squad, served as my one protection as I awaited the politician to eventually figure out that I had survived. Some months later, my worst fears came true.
Ah, so this is the universe where that fool Tommy has been hiding. He is one of the only remaining people who has bore witness to my plans. How ironic will it be to use his own fairlies to destroy him?
Soon, the politician began using his power to try and attack the squad. He possessed mighty power, but we knew the area and held the upper hand, until the politician opened yet another portal, swallowing us all and catapulting us into the most disgusting world I had ever seen.
What the hell is that?
That's pretty cool.
Oh my god. Going through that portal balanced the chemicals in my mind. My depression, it's cured.
Congratulations.
Scares, do you hear me? Scares, do you copy? Come in, please. Tommy, we really should have listened to you. We underestimated this guy. Things are bad, man. Things are bad. Perfect Spearman's out for the count. Multiplication Man's AWOL. Jerry's having another asthma attack.
Hey, come on now. We gotta get out of here, you fuckle buckle.
Are you suggesting that I abandon my squadron to this demigod who threatens the causality of causality itself as they face certain death?
I don't see why not.
Damn it, he got purple, man. Your fairlies make this guy impossible to defeat. Wait a minute. That's it. I'm going in.
Very good, idiot.
Don't you see, dude? My super suit is immune to magic. All I gotta do is walk over there, kick this guy's ass, and then we win. Stay right here. I'll be done with this in a second.
Hey! I don't know who you really are under that cheap Halloween mask, but I do know one thing. I'm your worst nightmare. Ha! Come on then! Ye gods. Bullets. My one kryptonite.
Goodness! I must have multiplied after I entered the politician's portal, before I was knocked out upon hitting the ground. I hope I haven't missed anything important. And now that your friend is out of the way, Tommy Turner, it's time to die.
Wait. Don't get too crazy.
Oh, things are about to get crazy, I assure you. You and your group of superfools have ruined my evening and my best shirt, and now I'm mad. So let me ask you this, do you have even a single reason that I shouldn't kill you this instant?
I mean, do you not know?
Of course I don't know, why else would I ask? Wait, how come everything you're saying sounds like it barely makes sense in context?
So, my favorite animal? It's definitely gotta be an owl.
What? Great Scott! Tommy's in grave danger and is moments away from being shot. But there's nothing I can do to distract Trump in time to stop him. Unless... that's it! I must multiply to 5 million! What the hell is happening?
It was then, in the chaos which had erupted from Multiplication Man's defense, that I happened to look down for the first time, and I saw you.
God damn it, I just finished raking.
After I escaped from your backyard, I began to pull together the clues which had been set out before me. First Chester, then Bruce, and now you. 3 men from 3 different worlds which seemed to be the same. It was then that it hit me. Being in the proximity of the Wish had sent me spiraling into non-existence before I found myself in another universe. Chester was even closer? Maybe the same happened to him. And so I broke into the politician's HQ and stole some of his technology, which I used to build my own dimensional coordinator. I began hunting through the multiverse, each world stranger than the last. And then, on one Earth, I found him. He was outside the same building where I had last seen him. After finding himself in a world where his social security number no longer worked, he had become homeless, living on the streets, and doing God knows what for even the most basic sustenance.
Hey! Come here, man! I'll suck your dick for a pack of M&Ms.
Okay. It was clear that Chester had been through a lot and was likely very traumatized. I needed to approach him with the utmost delicacy.
Chester! It's me, Tommy! No, that's impossible. You ceased to exist when Donald Trump became president. That's right.
The sudden shock of my arrival had sent Chester into shock, and he passed out. I soon was able to wake him up, but by that time, the politician had found us and had sent some of his laser drones to assassinate us.
Earth 9 is lined up. What?
Chester hesitated entering the portal for just long enough to confuse the dimensional cortex crystals, causing his late entry to override and corrupt the portal. Inside, we were poisoned by the dimensional currents before we once again found ourselves being catapulted into completely random universes.
Oh, my face. My beautiful face. I'm scarred for life. Chester? Chester! Chester! Ugh.
Somebody once told me. My attempts to find Chester had wasted so much time, and as I was gone, the politician had managed to genetically modify the only living version of Multiplication Man, so he would multiply into infinity. This served one simple purpose: to power his generator. And now, the politician is using the infinite death of my friend to power his massive space station. If we don't stop him, by the end of the day, he shall break open the earth, killing all life as he drains our world of its most profitable elements, before sliding to another world to sell these spoils for profit.
That's a really dumb plan.
Yeah, well, it's gonna happen if we don't stop it. That's why I have assembled the greatest team this Earth has to offer. You, me, and your world's greatest warrior, who I personally resurrected.
Hey. Oh, Jesus Christ, that was you? Why would you resurrect Johnmas, man? He sucks.
Hey! Well, historically, I found that many powerful evil figures in your world have resurrected him for their plans. So, he must be a good fighter or something.
Oh, hell no. The first person to resurrect Johnmas was an idiot. The second person was just copying that guy's plan. The third person was simply following a trend. He always gets brought back by morons, he always stabs him in the back at the last minute, and then he comes back to me to try and murder me in an insanely lame way.
Yeah, but every time I get brought back, I'm a little bit stronger.
The opposite of that is true. Every time he gets brought back, he sucks a little bit more. I have killed this man twice by throwing a DVD at him with mild force.
Look, none of this is relevant. The gist of this whole thing is that we need to stop the end of the world, and we need to know if you're on board.
Listen, man, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 35 minutes of my time. And I don't care if every version of reality is at stake. When that timer runs out, no matter what, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to my apartment with my cat who loves me more than any cat really should. And I'm going to log into NordVPN, which you can get at nordvpn.com/Quinton. And I'm going to watch Canadian Netflix. And just to prove to you that I'm serious, you now have 25 minutes.
Holy hand grenade! We need to get out of here!
Mr. President, our satellites have been tracking Tommy Tooner. He's just left his base with a resurrected version of Johnmus and YouTuber Quinton reviews.
How predictable. Of course Tommy would know that the only way to stop someone from destroying the universe is with an internet critic. But the fool has only gathered one. It would take 5 or 12 to stop this plan, at the very least. Nevertheless, we have planned for this contingency. Carol, activate. Operation Following Trend.
But Mr. President, surely you're aware that doing that could lead to a massive paradox.
I didn't ask for excuses, Carol. You know what? Never mind, I'll do this myself.
Mecha Johnmus. Rise.
I really think we're lost.
Okay, well, that's impossible. You see, to find the space station, I actually wrote up a complex algorithm in this custom program I built, and it was supposed to spit out the exact location of the space station on this here map. So unless there's some fundamental error I made in the mapping process, it should be right here. What do you...
What's his name again? It's on his shirt. Hey, Johnmus?
Yeah.
Buddy? Who do you suppose that is?
Who?
The young man running towards us at supersonic speed.
Oh, it kind of looks like Roderick from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie.
Johnmus, I'm like 95% sure that's you.
What?
Oh, you know what? I see it now.
Come on, guys. Just because someone looks a little bit like me doesn't mean they're actually me.
Hello, robo-f***s.
Okay, that's me.
Yep, that's you to a T. I mean, it's super easy to tell.
Quinton, darling, it's so nice to see you. And that it's terrible, because I hate your guts. Last time we met, I had broken into your room to show off my newfound powers. And then you shot me several times with your gun. But now I have returned to defeat you once and for all.
Is that honestly what I sound like?
I mean, sometimes. It's kind of inconsistent. Half the time you show up, I'm like, come on, dude, get a throw loss. It's really
What the hell is going on?
I honestly don't know.
I think I figured it out.
So a couple of years ago, I decided to review an episode of Power Rangers I didn't like. But when I got into my house to do so, Johnmus was there. Now this was the second time I'd ever seen him, and the first time he had tied me up in his basement and forced me to review a Robotech movie, so I was a little on edge. He was pretty mad about the fact that I got him sent to jail, and he started threatening me in really detailed and gruesome ways. So I killed him. I felt like that was a pretty normal response. The weird thing was that a couple minutes later, he showed up again. He said he'd been resurrected, he wanted to kill me again, started describing how, so I shot him. I feel like you can sort of guess what happened next. For the rest of the evening, John must continue to appear at my house over and over again, every time under the implication that someone had decided to resurrect him. Sometimes he didn't tell me who, and usually I didn't care to ask. Every time he would have some new and supposedly brilliant way to kill me, which he would spend too much time explaining, and then he would die in a really, really sad way.
I never really dedicated enough thought to it before, but I guess the fact that every version of John Miss that I saw that day appeared in rapid succession, sometimes within seconds of the previous time that I had killed him, meant that there had to be some level of time travel involved in that whole fiasco. Essentially, what I am proposing is that sometime later during this adventure, this version of John Miss will go back into time, taking his place in that former review, and thus completing the circle.
I hate that! Yeah, I mean, it's me, and I hate that too.
Yeah, right? I mean, have we already run out of characters? We couldn't bring back Cat Bernie Sanders or something?
Now that we're all on the same page, let's begin. I'm here to kill all of you, which I do have the skill set to accomplish. I'll tear you limb from limb, piece by piece, and I'll make you savor the pain like a full-course meal. This isn't a job to Master Chef John Miss. It's a sport. Well, if my counterpart wants to play rough, we'll play rough. Agreed!
Just stop. Just ignore him.
What?
Listen, man, I've been dealing with John Miss for years now. And if there's anything I've learned about the guy, it's that he's all talk. He never does anything. He just stands around and yaps his mouth about all the things he's gonna do and then proceeds not to do any of it. The moment you respond, the moment you interact, that's when you've lost. Because that's when you've given him the power to make a huge scene out of the whole ordeal, to make a huge show of it. But if you just ignore him, he'll burn out or explode in such a ridiculous way that it'll remove all doubt about the situation. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some Toon Blast to play. Not, of course, before I make sure that NordVPN is turned on, which you can get at nordvpn.com/Quinton.
How dare you plug a sponsor during our confrontation? Now I shall truly show you my wrath. Behold, a simple baseball, but also the weapon that shall kill us all. You see, before I left the space station, I had the president use Tommy's Fairlies to multiply its force by 18 octillion times. Simply by throwing this baseball down, I shall shatter the earth and send us all into the depths of Hades. Wait. I'm in too deep. Enjoy the center of the earth, ladies. It didn't work. I know it didn't work. Just give me a minute.
This is really embarrassing.
You're telling me. Well, it's no matter, because the president gave me this, a remote control that, when I press it, will launch laser drones that will instantly kill you.
Oh, shit.
ran out of levels.
Oh, that sucks, man.
Try updating the app? Can you please pay attention to me for 1 minute? This is very rude. I'm trying to kill you, and you won't even pay attention to me. You won't even watch. I want you to watch. It's no fun when you don't watch. Why won't you pay attention to me? Why won't you notice me? I take it back. This is embarrassing. John Miss, you're me. Maybe 1 or 2 resurrections down the line, but a future me. Stand with me. Work with me. There's no one who shares what we do. There's no one more like you than me. Remember our 10th birthday party when Uncle Jack took us to the carnival? He made sure I never stopped smiling that day when we watched the sunset on the Ferris wheel. That's the happiest I've ever been. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget who we are. I don't have an Uncle Jack. Excuse me? My parents were only children. I don't have any uncles. No, that's impossible. The memory's right here, in my data files. Data files?
You know what? I've actually heard about this. Some universes have these advanced androids that can generate fake skin or extract memories off of corpses. They come pre-installed with these generic memories in the same way a Windows computer comes equipped with these stock images of like a family having dinner or a sunset or a fish.
But that summer I spent with Uncle Jack, you don't understand, that was the happiest I've ever been. Those are the only good memories I have, and you're telling me that they were just generic files uploaded to my database to be used as a fucking screensaver!
Wait a minute, I remember this version of you now. He calls himself Mecha John. He comes with all these cute little gadgets and his hands have no continuity. This one's fun.
Okay, but I'm not an android, and I've never called myself Mecha John.
Oh shit. Further theory to the previous time travel theory, you know how every time someone resurrects you, they steal a bit of your DNA or rebuild you from scratch or whatever? What if this version of you sucks so much that the next guy to come around and want his own Jamas just went back a generation? So like this one doesn't even count in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, this version isn't even canon.
He's not even a Jamas. He's just some guy who's been programmed to believe that he's Jamas. Think about that. Being an android, you can be anyone in the multiverse, and you're forced to be Jamas.
Dude, I'm right here. No, that can't be possible. No, that's not true. I'm John Miss. Me, no one else. I'm the true John Miss. You're lying to me. It can't be true. No.
Wait a minute, we need to go now. We're gonna miss the time limit.
Yeah, because I'm gonna leave at some point if you guys don't hurry this up, because I really don't. I'm not enjoying myself right now. So we better run.
Let's go.
We better run.
There it is, the space station. A pinnacle of modern engineering. Nothing this world has ever seen before.
It would be truly magnificent
if it weren't being used for evil.
We're all seeing the same thing, right? The series of cardboard boxes being held together with masking tape. Does anyone else hear distinct screaming?
That's multiplication, man. His infinite death is powering the space station.
Honestly, man, that's metal as fuck. Wait a minute, do we have a plan? Did you even think we would get this far? I mean, honestly, Tommy, I don't trust your leadership here.
Right. So you remember how I chased Chester before I settled for you? Well, actually, I needed one of you for a specific reason. And you guys know what this is?
A vintage micro-change watch transformer?
Come on, it's more than that. It's Bruce Allen's morpher.
Was he the guy in your flashback that turned into a dinosaur?
Come on, then! Right, this is what gave him super strength and vulnerability and the ability to fly. He programmed it so that only someone with his DNA could use it, so no one else could use it for evil. I had to find someone with his exact DNA to continue this plan.
Right, okay. So your logic was you had to find someone with his DNA, so it had to be Chester or me, because you knew that the three of us were sort of interdimensional counterparts?
Right.
And so your plan is, I'm going to use this, I'm going to morph into the superhuman dinosaur, I'm going to fly up to the space station, I guess punch a hole in it, then I'll fly down here, I'll pick up all of us, and we'll fly up there, and then we'll have some sort of epic confrontation where I'm positioned as a god, and maybe I have to sacrifice myself to save all of humanity.
Exactly!
We're not doing any of that.
What?
Look, hear me out, man. This entire day, this entire hell of an evening has been this strange, coded rhythm of bizarre references to my previous content. And why are we going along with it? The bad guys are using this against us. Why would we play along? From my perspective, it makes a lot more sense to stand here, be logical for a moment, and just think through this and try and find a way to weaponize this excessive continuity against the bad guys.
Alright, but while we're doing that, we could be wasting valuable time here. I mean, think about it. Lives are on the line.
Guys, I really think we need to trust Quinton over here. I mean, do we really even have a choice? And plus, I believe in Quinton.
Who is that?
Mr. President, John Miss Tommy and the internet critic Quinton reviews are all directly outside of the space station.
Yes, I see them, Carol. Go ahead and turn off the comm link. I have some gloating to do. So, Quinton, my boy, you have finally arrived. I've tried all these years to distract you from my little project, but it seems you have been drawn back to it in the end. Little do you realize that this appearance I have taken on is nothing more than a disguise. How will you react, I wonder, when you discover that the person behind all of this is not Donald Trump, but in fact...
your own father.
Quinton, you got anything yet?
Yeah, I have one idea, but it's pretty dumb.
Come on, man, don't be like that. What is it?
We could use my time machine.
Your what?
So when I was in high school, I took part in a multimedia class which basically taught us basic broadcasting tactics. Now this class had existed for a very long time in the school, and I became personally obsessed with picking out random tapes from past classes and watching them. One day while trying to do this, our regular VCR happened to die on me, and my media teacher, Mr. Noble, invited me to get another one. When I hooked it up, I discovered that it was set to that very day, and after Noble left into the hall for just a moment, it began to pulse with electricity, giving me a shock and causing me to vanish into thin air.
Where'd he go? He's not here. You know what? He's gone rogue on me.
When I woke up, I realized that the school looked totally different than it had moments before, as did the student body. The class's unironic admiration for Will Smith hip-hop caused me to realize that I had traveled into the past. I had, Quinton, leaped. For some time after this, I grew accustomed to living in the past, with no real way to get back. This was until a teacher at the school brought to me a new invention, the same VCR which I had used to arrive. I was able to quickly use it while he was out of the room, and time traveled back to 2014. There, my friends had just discovered a letter which I had written for them decades before, causing them to celebrate my death.
She was dead!
Or at least that's always how I've imagined it. I wasn't actually there for that part. The next year, when I graduated, the new media teacher was so distracted upgrading everything to HD and Blu-ray that they didn't seem to notice me sneaking the VCR out under my robe. Also, it's worth noting, I had done so much time traveling by this point, I'm pretty sure I was like 25.
The long story short is, I still have the time machine. It sits around my place. When you sort of don't have money to leave the town that you live in, time travel gets boring fast, especially in a small place like this. I mean, God forbid, this place never changes. So I mainly use it if I find like expired coupons or if I want to pick up some gas in the 80s. Otherwise, it just like sits around my house. Sometimes I use it as a real VCR, which is not advisable, but you know, that's the whole story.
Well, this is perfect. We can use the VCR to go back in time before the politician even made the space station and stop them then.
Yeah, there's just one problem.
What's that?
It's back at my place. I don't feel like going to get it.
Oh.
Okay. Well, back to the drawing board.
Quinton, you remember when you opened that tough jar?
Why? You're gonna make me blush.
Yes, it is I, your father. Many years ago, I abandoned you at Disneyland and said I was going to buy cigarettes. But instead, I decided to become an evil scientist. You have wished to know me over the years as you grew up. But ironically, our paths have crossed many times. Do not look for other Frosty sequels. They do not exist. They never did.
Get the hell out of my house!
Earthlings of all creeds and denominations! We must stop the moon!
God damn it, not you again. I gotta start locking my doors.
But you didn't start locking your door. So a year ago, I enacted my greatest plan against you yet.
Make the entire third Thinning movie about Wade Freeman and how he single-handedly stops the President of the United States and ends the Thinning film. Make the character's growth and execution in the first two films. Preferably, the final act of the movie would involve a scene where Wade Freeman saves the day entirely by perhaps there is a button at the end of the where the wall is closing. If you press that button, the thinning ends. There's no way we can hit that button in time. Wade Freeman says. And I think I'm gonna need that $5, because this room has just spontaneously caught on fire. Okay.
Once you come aboard the space station, inevitably you will, you can choose between your friends or ruling the multiverse with your own father.
Oh my god.
What?
I think I got it, like for real.
Yeah?
John, remember a couple years ago when I did that Power Rangers review? We've already talked about this. He kept coming back with more and more stupid ways to try and kill me. And one time, you were so intent on trying to do it, you brought an army of millions of alien spaceships and you parked them right above my house. And they were all gonna like blow my house up.
That's right. The Zen Tribe.
Zen Tribe.
Yes, the Zen Tribe. The Zen Tribe Armada. They are some of the fiercest warriors and, may I say, partiers of the galaxy.
Okay. Well, all the stupid stuff you do, it all sort of melts together in my mind after a while. Can you remind me how I stopped that threat?
Okay. So I think you got angry.
Right.
You walked outside your front door, and then you glared at the Armada until it blew up.
That's what I thought I did. I thought I went outside, I glared at it, and then literally everything blew up. I think I killed a bald eagle. I mean, Tommy, no offense, buddy. This threat feels way less severe than that. Honestly, what is stopping me from just doing that again?
The fact that this would be really anticlimactic?
Who cares?
Quinton! Come on!
Everything's spewing smoke. Oh, is that all it's gonna do? Do smoke?
Oh, no, look at that. It's on fire.
Oh, wow. So it is.
one inferno up there. Look at that. Look at those flames. Look at that.
It is
burning.
Carol, what is happening?
Who the hell are you?
I'm Donald Trump under the mask. You missed a big thing there.
I don't know what happened. Quinton Reviews was just staring up at us, and suddenly the entire space station was on fire.
Down the boy, realizing our genes give us an incredible glare. I must get to the escape pod.
Huh. We did it? I saved everyone.
Well, you did kill Multiplication Man and Tommy's Fairlies in the process.
You can't prove that.
Look, the ship's gravity fields are disabled and it's lowering to the ground.
Oh yeah, look at that. It's coming right down, yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Pretty cool.
That shit is gonna start a forest fire.
You were totally right. Let's get the hell out of here before we're killed or blamed. Well, guys, it's been a long day, but I'm glad I stuck through it in the end. This has been quite an adventure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This has truly been one of the greatest days on all of Earth.
Okay, now you're overselling it.
Well, boys, I want to thank you for your help today. But I think I'm gonna head out. I want to go back to my universe and see if we can rebuild.
Well, Tommy, it's been good getting to know you. I guess I'm kinda sad to see you go in the end.
Oh, don't worry, Quinton. I think we'll meet again sometime.
Well, all's well that ends well, I suppose.
Yeah, although I can't help but feel like we've forgotten something important.
Oh, really?
Hi, Mecha John Miss.
Hello, boys. I'd like to thank you for our previous conversation. Oh, sure. At first, I was horrified to learn that I am not really John Miss. But then I realized what a blessing this was. John Miss was weak and inferior. He never did a damn thing right in his whole life. I'm not John Miss. I'm better than John Miss. Behold my latest creation, my nanoblocks, nanoboxes. Both names are correct. The perfect breed, part science, part magistry, and the perfect killing machines.
That's not true. That's impossible!
Now, bear witness as my bioskin finishes recharging and is fully restored.
Oh, I forgot I was naked. 1 second.
As I was saying, the nanoboxes, they can disintegrate any organic material with one blast, and then I will finally be rid of my nemesis and be the one true John Miss.
Hey, Mecha John Miss, buddy, it looks like some of your bioskin didn't restore right.
Well, look at that. It's no matter. Now I can proudly show my android heritage and prove that I am the perfect mix of machine and John Miss.
Hey, MJ, out of curiosity, do your nanocubes have time travel technology?
Why, yes. Yes, they do.
Well, why don't you just use them to time travel back in time to 2017 to the last time I killed you? Then you can kill me then, and it'll be like this whole adventure never took place.
You fool! With this idea, you have sealed your fate. Nanoboxes, nanoblocks, whatever. Take me back to March 2017 to this fool's home so we can kill this issue at its root!
John Miss. I'm not John Miss. John Miss is no more. I've become far more powerful than any regular John Miss ever could become, for I am Mega John Miss.
Wow! Robofan, you did it! He's gone! Just like that!
Yeah.
You took care of him, that's incredible! You're incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Good job!
Yeah, well, buddy, it's good you're not like that anymore.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is. Yeah.
So,
yeah?
Are you gonna pull out that gun, or is that like just gonna sit there?
You fool! I was never on your side the whole time. I was evil. Evil the whole time. You never saw it coming.
Oh no. He's gone rogue.
Oh, that's not the only thing I lied about.
Okay, so I know you're going for me to be like deeply horrified, but I'm more confused. I don't know what.
Back when I was Mecha Johnmas, you had convinced me that I was not in the lineage of Johnmas at all. So, when I faced my death in 2017 at the hands of you throwing a DVD, I thought it would be my final. However, in the year 3033, I was revived by the Tang Empire as Super Johnmas to help them destroy the Zen Tribe Armada. However, I immediately betrayed the Tang Empire, and I was working with the Zen Tribe Armada on one condition, that they first send me back to 2017 and help me blow up your house. Then, you killed them all with your glare, but then I was resurrected as Star Convoy Johnmas, and that is where I first found the orb of Orbulon's palace.
Oh my god, shut up, I don't care! You convinced me Mecha Johnmas wasn't canon. I don't know why you did it, because it literally helped you in no way throughout this entire thing. In fact, it arguably hindered your plot. But there you go, you did it, man. You took something complex, and you made it more complex. Congratulations.
Oh, it helped me in one way. In getting assistance without you ever knowing. Think about it. Why do you think no one could detect my android circuitry? It's almost as if I was cloaking my wavelengths.
Don't you dare, you son of a bitch.
That's right. This latest conquest to kill Quinton reviews has been sponsored by NordVPN. If you go to nordvpn.com/JohnMiss, you'll get 70% off your first purchase. And if you use code JohnMiss at checkout, you'll get an additional month free.
That is not, if you use that link, you're not a real fan. The only link approved by this channel's nordvpn.com/Quinton. You have to use that link.
But nordvpn.com/JohnMiss is easier to spell.
Damn it, that's true.
And now, Quinton, watch as I take not only your life, but your entire career.
Okay. Do it.
What?
Do it. Shoot me right now.
Well, I'm not gonna do it. It's obviously a trap. What's so funny?
Who are you trying to fool here, man? Is it me or is it yourself? Because we both know what's going to happen here. You're going to keep ranting about the fact that you're going to shoot me. You're not going to do it. You're not going to shoot me. Because you never do. And eventually you're going to get distracted by something that just happens. And you're going to end up focused on that. And then you're going to die in a really pathetic way. And yeah, in the end, you'll come back in 2 or 3 years in a really stupid thing, and you'll try and kill me, and then you'll die again in a really lame way. Don't you ever get tired of how like endlessly pedantic your life always proves to be?
That's not true. That's not true, and I'll prove it.
Oh.
I'm gonna prove it. You'll see. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you right now. And to make your suffering worse, I'm gonna count down from 5. I'm gonna count down from 5, and at either 1 or 0, you will be dead because I will have shot you. All right? 5, 4, 3, 2.
Here now, what's going on here?
Mr. Noble! Hey, man!
Who is this?
Oh, this was my media teacher in high school. Didn't you see him in my flashback?
Oh, okay, so I have to listen to your endless ranting about your backstory, but you won't do the same for me?
Here now, Quinton, it looks like your friend's gone rogue on you.
That's what I said.
Well, me and a couple of other former media students are going to hit up the China buffet as sort of a reunion. Why don't you come along and join us?
Oh, dude, I am totally game. I haven't been there in years. Can you give me like 5 minutes?
No! No, there won't be a 5 minutes for you, because in 5 minutes, you'll be in a hole in the ground!
Well, I'm glad I ran into you. I found this DVD in my home. I think you gave it to me the last year I was teaching. I was wondering if you wanted it back.
Oh, sure. Why don't you just toss it on over?
Okay, here you go.
Alright, this movie sucks. Roll the credits. Oh man, this is either going to be the best video we've ever done or the worst video.
There's no in between.
Am I making a film?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a good one?
No.
John Miss, you have incredibly flexible forearms.
Quinton! Come on! I believe in you, Quinton!
God damn it,
I wasn't expecting it at all.
Well, that's exactly how I wrote.
Yeah, dude, still in the 6th grade. Fuck.
No! No!
Let's try that again.
One that I pitched was a superhero that's like the Flash, but he has asthma.
Did you? How did that not make it in?
That's perfect. That's my favorite.
That's it. Quinton's dead. Guys, Quinton's dead.
Oh,
it was great to see you again.
Great to see you.
Glad
Now
to-
tell me, you're doing vlogs, or what are you doing? What are you doing online that everybody's talking about?
Now I will wait patiently aboard my space station. Wait.
Doing great. A tremendous job. This is such a good script, Quinton. This is the best script.
I don't know what happened. 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 Quinton Rivera. I'll just do it Slimer style.
Someone's excited to be on camera. Do you want to be in the credits?
I won't go that far.
Is it going to be scary or anything?
No, it's just going to be unwatchable. That's what we're going for.
How did they make it?
It's so
much harder when you're actually doing it.
The arms are what makes it hard. I know. If I was just running, I'd be like, yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your old friend, Cat Bernie Sanders. You may have noticed this video's tendency toward political bias. I would like all of you to know that this was wholly unintentional on the part of the creators. However, I believe that there are themes in this video, lessons I hope you will apply in your own community and within your own life. The destruction of the bourgeoisie for the sake of the American people is not only attainable, it is necessary. We must all join hands in a revolution to accomplish these goals, no matter how lofty. America's rich commit heinous crimes against her hardworking people. The truth of the matter, the truth that the Washington establishment would prefer that you forget, is that 1% of households in this country possess 40% of all wealth. At this pivotal time in our nation's history, we might regard this so-called 1% in much the same way we regard a freshly opened can of tuna. They are merely waiting to be eaten. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and to support Quinton Reviews on Patreon. We are talking about a grassroots campaign of support. That is all you need.